Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a really misunderstood topic, the relationship between your pancreas and the fat you eat. And we're going to tackle a huge paradox, the idea that some of the fats we've been told for decades to avoid might actually be exactly what this critical organ needs to thrive. So take a look at this. This is salo, which is basically cured pork fat, or lard. Now, for years, foods like this have been called public enemy number one, right? The ultimate unhealthy food. But what if I told you that for your pancreas, this could be a total game changer? It sounds absolutely crazy, I know, but stick with me because the science behind it is pretty fascinating. So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to solve this fat paradox. We'll get to know the pancreas and its two main jobs. Then we'll pinpoint the real things that stress it out. We'll create a simple guide to good fats versus bad fats, look at the dangers of getting that balance wrong, and then wrap it all up with a clear, actionable plan for your health.
Okay, so first things first. To understand the story, we have to understand the main character, your pancreas. The best way to think about it is as a super efficient factory with two completely different but equally critical production lines. For you to be healthy, both of them have to be running smoothly.
So, your pancreas really wears two hats. On one side, you've got the endocrine department, which is like the sugar manager. It's making hormones like insulin to keep your blood sugar in check. Then, on the other side, you have the exocrine department, the digestion powerhouse. This side makes all the enzymes you need to break down fats, proteins, and carbs. But here's the absolute kicker. These two departments are not separate. They are deeply connected. If one side starts having problems, you can bet the other one is going to feel it too.
You know, for decades, the advice was just so simple: avoid fat. But it turns out that's way too simplistic. The real issue isn't fat as a whole category. Instead, it's a few very specific culprits that are really responsible for throwing your pancreas into total chaos.
There are really three main bad guys here. First up, the wrong kind of fats. We're talking trans fats and cheap refined oils. They mess up your gut, which then causes a wave of inflammation that washes right over to your pancreas. Second, a sugar overload. Too many sweets lead to insulin resistance, which damages the sugar side of the factory. That damage then spills over and starts hurting the enzyme side. And third, you've got gallbladder blockages. If gallstones block the plumbing, digestive enzymes get trapped inside the pancreas, causing this incredibly painful backup called pancreatitis.
So let's get down to it. Which fats are the problem and which are the solution? To clear up all the confusion, let's sort them into three simple categories: the villains, the allies, and the unlikely heroes.
And this is where we really flip the script on conventional wisdom. The villains? No surprise here. It's the industrial fats like margarine and the stuff in fast food that cause inflammation. The allies are the ones you probably know well: olive oil, avocado, fatty fish like salmon. But the real surprise comes in that last category, the heroes. We're talking about beneficial saturated fats. In moderation, things like sallow, real grass-fed butter, and coconut oil can actually be supportive for your pancreas. Let's put a face to the name of our number one villain: hydrogenated fat. It sounds technical, but the idea is simple. You take cheap vegetable oil and you pump it full of hydrogen to make it solid and stable. The most famous result is margarine. This chemical process creates artificial trans fats that our bodies just aren't built to handle, and they are directly tied to inflammation. You know, this is just a classic case of unintended consequences. Margarine was invented to be a healthier alternative to butter, to solve the cholesterol issue. But in trying to fix one problem, a whole new, massive problem was created with trans fats. It's a perfect lesson in nutritional history. So, back to our unlikely hero, sallow. Why is it considered beneficial? Well, for starters, it's a fantastic source of vitamin D. It also has something called arachidonic acid, which is critical for your brain and hormone function. And here's a big one. It is incredibly stable when you cook with it, meaning it doesn't break down into harmful compounds the way many vegetable oils do under high heat. Okay, so we know the players. We know the good guys and the bad guys. But what actually happens when the villains start to win and your diet gets out of balance? Well, the consequences are pretty serious, and they usually show up in one of three main ways. An overload of the wrong fats can directly trigger pancreatitis, which is a painful inflammation of the pancreas. It's also a major contributor to developing gallstones. And this might surprise you, but even without a diet high in sugar, a diet high in these bad fats can disrupt your hormones so much that it leads to insulin resistance. The key to all of this is finding what's called the golden mean.
And here's another paradox for you. If you eat too little fat, your bile just sits in your gallbladder and stagnates, eventually forming stones. But if you eat too much of the wrong fat, you overload the whole system, and that also leads to stones. So for gallbladder health, that balance is everything.
So, what's the target? What does that balance actually look like? Well, for most adults, somewhere in the ballpark of 80 to 100 grams of total fat per day seems to be the sweet spot. That's enough to support your system without completely overloading it. All right, we've identified the villains and the heroes. We know the goal. So now let's put it all together into a simple, straightforward action plan.
Your plan really just has 3 simple steps. First, remove the villains. Get the margarine, the cheap mayonnaise, and the fast food out of your life. Second, control your total fat intake. Just keep that 80 to 100 gram number in the back of your mind. And third, balance your sources. This is the real game changer. Aim to get about 30% of your daily fats from those beneficial saturated sources. And hey, a quick word on shortcuts. You see those digestive enzyme supplements everywhere, and they might seem like an easy fix, right? But it's kind of like what the source material says here. It's like using a crutch. Sure, it might help you walk for a bit, but it's not doing a single thing to heal the actual broken leg. You have to address the root cause, and that's your diet. So, the biggest takeaway from all of this is pretty simple. It's not about deprivation. It's not about having some joyless, fat-free diet. It's all about substitution. You just need to replace the harmful, inflammatory fats with nutrient-dense, supportive ones that your body actually knows how to use. It's a swap, not a sacrifice. Ultimately, the whole conversation we have around fat needs to change. The question isn't if you should eat fat, that's settled. The real question is, which fats are you going to choose to build your cells, to create your hormones, and to fuel your life? The power to support your pancreas and your whole body is right there in that choice. Thanks for tuning in.